המקדיש, שקלים פרק ד' משנה ז'. המקדיש נכסיו, somebody gave his possessions away to בית המקדש. והייתה בהם ראויה לגבי המזבח. And amongst those things, there was an animal that you can bring as a sacrifice. An animal that you can bring as a sacrifice. In other words, now again, you have two options. You can sell the animal and use it for gold, or you can use the animal as the appointed sacrifice of what it is. בהמות הראויות לקורבנות. And he had זכרים ונקבות. And he had males and females. And now comes the males and females. Some sacrifices are only males, some sacrifices are only females. Yeah? כגון כבשים וכבשות. He had male goats and female goats, male sheep and female sheep. Rabbi Eliezer says, זכרים יימכרו לצרכי עולות. So the male ones you're allowed to sell for the necessity of an עולה sacrifice, which means זכרים הראויים להקריבם עולות, male goats who can be brought as a עולה sacrifice, as a burnt offering, יימכרו למי שצריכים בהמות לעולות. Sell it to a person who needs a בהמה לעולה. Somebody says, I want to bring an עולה sacrifice. So he comes to בית המקדש, sell it to him, take the money, and now you can use the money for בית המקדש. And the sacrifice goes for the purpose of what God made the sacrifice for. It's an olah. It was always an olah, since it's befitting to be a korban, an olah. But don't sell it on the market and take the money and use it in the Beit HaMikdash. Sell it to the guy who wants to bring the animal for what God intended the animal for. ונקבות, and what about the female ones? שאינם ראויות לעולות, that they're not permitted to become an olah, a burnt offering, יימכרו לצרכי זבחי שלמים, but you can bring them as a peace offering. So therefore you can sell it to somebody who wants to buy a peace offering. למי שצריכים בהמות לשלמים. So somebody who wants the animal for shlamim. In other words, use the animal for what God made the animal for.
I wonder why you have to sell it, because the guy did the hekdesh of all nechassav. Why can't you take it just to the mizbeach and make sacrifice for this guy that הקדיש את כל הזהו שלו?
You can also do that. You can also just bring it all as kitzei zvachim. Yeah, but over here it says the guy wants, the Beit HaMikdash doesn't want it. They want the cash. So he says, but if you want the cash, you can get the cash, but not by selling it on the market. Yeah, you have to give it to the right purpose. Yeah, the same designation. ודמיהן של אותן הבהמות, and then the money, then you can take it and use that money for צורכי הבית. ייפלו עם שאר הנכסים לבדק הבית. You can go into the בדק הבית, and now you can use it for the roads of ירושלים, you can use it for the walls of ירושלים, you can use it for whatever. But otherwise you can't, because it's on a nice exchange. Rabbi Eliezer סובר, Rabbi Eliezer thinks שסתם הקדשות לבדק הבית. That regular people who made hekdesh, who made something, their property hekdesh, goes for the upkeep of the house. ואפילו בדברים הראויים למזבח, and even things that should be brought to the altar. אלא שמכל מקום, כל הראוי למזבח אינו יוצא מדי מזבח. But things, look, this is supposed to go on the altar. Let's not go wild, he's saying. Even though I will allow you, theoretically we can sell it for money. But this is befitting for the altar. Let's give it to the altar. ולפיכך אין מוכרים אותו אלא לצרכי מזבח. Therefore we only sell it for that designated purpose. היינו למי שצריך בהמה זו לקורבן. Somebody who wants this animal for a sacrifice. והדמים יפלו להוצאה בית המקדש לצרכי בית הבית. And then whatever is left, the money that comes in, that you can use for other purposes. רבי יהושע אומר, רבי יהושע says, זכרים עצמן יקרבו עולות. So Rabbi Yeshua disagrees. It says, no, you're still making money. You're still making money. He's going to say what you said. So if he's got an olah, something that you can bring in the olah sacrifice, bring it as an olah sacrifice for that guy. Yeah? That's right. He gave it for the Beit HaMikdash. He wants it an olah sacrifice. So don't make money out of it. So Rabbi Eliezer said, I'm not making money. Anyway, the guy needs an olah sacrifice. I'm using it for the designation. You see? It's mine. When the guy gave it to me, the temple, now it's the temple's. What do you care what I do with it? But Rabbi Yoshua says, no. You give it as a sacrifice like for the first guy. You're not allowed to use money out of it. You're not allowed to make money, business out of it. Rabbi Yoshua אומר, זכרים עצמם יקרבו עולות. He says, the males will become peace offering, burnt offering. זה אחרי הבהמות שבאותם הנכסים צריכים להקריב עולות על המזבח. You need to bring them burnt offering on the מזבח, on the altar, ואין למכור אותם, and don't sell them. Now, what do you do with the female ones? ונקבות שאינם ראויות לעולות. And the female ones that now you cannot bring them as a burnt sacrifice, יימכרו לצרכי זבחי שלמים. That only there you can sell it for shlamim, because you don't have a choice. What else are you going to do with them? Yeah. Because shlamim needs an owner. And over here, it belongs to the temple. You don't have an owner. So we can't bring it as a shlamim. Who's going to get it? Somebody needs to get it. And olah, yeah? Misrefet kalil. Yeah. יימכרו לצרכי זבחי שלמים. So the nekevot, the other ones, it's better for it to use on the mizbeach. Even for the guy who donated it. That's what he meant it for.
So they buy shlamim for it.
Yeah. למי שצריכים בהמות לקורת במה שלמים ויביד בדמיהם עולות. And even then you can't use with that money. You can't use it for something else. You have to use it as a sacrifice. Which sacrifice? A burnt offering. Then use that money for the burnt offering. It was all for Hashem. In other words, don't steal money for other purposes. All the purposes has to use in a sacrifice.
You can give to Hashem,
give Hashem. Even though you're transferring from shlamim to olot, but it's still, it's better to transfer to the temple to temple than temple to sacrifice than sacrifice to gold. That's the idea. Whatever. Rabbi Yeshua thinks שכל הראוי למזבח, that anybody, and again, the logic is what's the mindset of the person who gave. That's what is a normal person? If he didn't say, what is he thinking? It's almost like here in America, when a person dies without a will. Then the government comes in and the lawyers are going to say, what does a normal person think? So a normal person thinks it goes to the wife, and it goes to the children, it doesn't go to the uncle. So that's the way it goes. That's what a normal person would think. That's where they go. שכל הראוי למזבח, that anything, normal person when he donates his possessions, he thinks all the things that goes to the altar, מן הסתם הקדישו המקדיש כולו למזבח. Most probably he meant it for the altar. That's what we're going to assume. Yeah, that's what we're going to assume. היינו שיקריביו עולה לשמו. In other words, that they're going to give עולה for his name. שהיא כולה נשרפת על המזבח. That it is all going to be burnt on the mizbeach. By the way, it's very problematic even today. An organization gets money, yeah, for soup kitchens, yeah, to feed the people. The guy with the money bought a plane. Why? Because the CEO of the organization needs to fly from one place to another place. Is he allowed to? That's exactly the thing of you. Excuse me, you got a donation to feed the poor. He says, so according to one opinion, yes, that's going to feed the poor. The fact that I have a plane is part of it. So he says, no, they gave you for food. That's the argument, not for the plane. It's true that you're allowed to. We're not saying not allowed to. Even you're making more money. But that's not the designation of the money, or is it the designation of the money? That's the discussion. Are we allowed to? You see, it's very... Yep. ונקבות and females, אף על פי שאינם ראויות לעולות. But females anyway, you cannot bring them as a burnt offering. מכל מקום הואיל והן ראויות למזבח, but since you can bring them on the altar, אף עליהם לא חלה קדושת בדק הבית, אלא קדושת המזבח. So therefore they still belong to the altar. They don't belong to the other things. Yeah. אבל הואיל והמקדיש נתכוון לעולות, but you can't. You can't bring it as a sacrifice. It's a female. So what are you going to do? Do the trick. altar to altar. לפיכך, ימרקרו לצרכי שלמים ויביאו בדמי עולות. So therefore, sell them as שלמים and use that money for a burnt offering. ושאר נכסים יפלו לבדק הבית. And the rest of his possessions, his house, his fields, his goat, not his goat, his camel, sell it in the market and get it to whatever you want. That you can use for the plane. But don't use for the plane the sacrifices. In other words, here let's take an example. If somebody gives you money for the organization of soup kitchen, go use the money for the organization for soup kitchen, use that money for buying a plane. It's okay. But if somebody gave you food, he gives you food. Don't sell that food on the market and say, he gave you food, use the food for the food. That's the difference. Yeah. It says, he gave you food over here. What are you using it for the plane?
Sell the food.
Exactly. What, are you paying for the plane? No. The food.
Buy another food.
Exactly. That's exactly what he's saying over here. Yeah. Okay. ושאר נכסים יפלו לבדק הבית. We have to just have in mind what is Rabbi, who was the first? Rabbi Eliezer? Rabbi Yoshua, or who was the first? It doesn't say who. It was a Tana Kama. Whoever the Tana Kama, Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer said, let's say his logic. His logic is also good. He says, once the guy says it belongs to the temple, now it belongs to the temple. That's it. He has no say anymore. Now the Gizbar, the guy who owns the money, he can do with it whatever he wants. He says he even is allowed to go and sell it. It's not nice to sell it, so I won't sell it. That's what he's saying. But the fact that you gave it to me, now it's mine. You cannot tell him what to do. Otherwise, don't give. If you give me. That's what Rabbi Eliezer says. Also, you have to understand his logic.
I do understand, but on the other hand, it's more refined.
Yeah, it's nicer. It's nicer over here. ושאר נכסים, but we're not talking about nice, we're talking about who does the money belong to. Yeah? ושאר נכסים יפלו לבדק הבית. וכל שאר הנכסים שאינם ראויים למזבח, all the tractors, the cars, whatever it is, יפלו לאוצר המקדש לצורכי בדק הבית. All those go to the necessities of the temple. רבי עקיבא אומר, רבי עקיבא says, רואה אני את דברי רבי אליעזר מדברי רבי יהושע. So Rabbi Akiva says, I like Rabbi Eliezer more than I like Rabbi Yoshua. Yeah? He says, I agree with Rabbi Eliezer more, that you're allowed to exchange it. That you're allowed to take, somebody gave donation of food, you're allowed to sell the food and buy a plane. Yeah? נראים לי דברי רבי אליעזר יותר מדברי רבי יהושע. Why? שרבי אליעזר השווה את מידתו. It's because Rabbi Eliezer stays constant in all the halachas, in all the other mishnayos. Which ones? קבע הלכה שווה לכל הנכסים, שכולם לבדק הבית, או הם עצמם או דדיהם. Rabbi Eliezer, he says, is very simple. It says, once you give money to the temple, you know who it belongs to? It belongs to the temple. What are you saying? This one more, this one less. No. You gave money to God, it belongs to God. You don't ever say where it goes now. Now, God decides where it goes now. And God put an appointee on who it goes now. He decides where it goes now. ורבי יהושע חלק. Rabbi Yoshua says no. It's not God decides. I also have a say. I can give a donation and I can say where the donation goes to.
That you can do.
Yeah?
But that's not
but in the case that it wasn't said.
Oh.
So it says, does the guy have to think what I would have wanted? Yeah. ורבי יהושע חלק שהבהמות למזבח, he says no, if somebody gives you a specific, it looks like it's for a specific purpose, it should be used for that specific purposes. ושאר נכסים לבדק הבית. So by him, there's a division. Some things belong to the temple, and something, in other words, something belongs to the Gizbar, and something doesn't belong to the Gizbar. It says, you can't say that. What do you mean something don't belong to it? Once you gave the thing, it belongs to the thing. ואף בבהמות חילק בין זכרים לנקבות. But then he makes a distinction. He makes a distinction between males and females. So he is not constant in his logic. Rabbi Eliezer is constant in his logic. Rabbi Yoshua, he says, once you go halfway somewhere. Yeah, you're switching your position halfway. So I like the guy who doesn't switch his position. His logic I like better. Amar Rabbi Papayas. So then Rabbi Papayas comes into the conversation. Shamati ki divrei shnehem. It says, you know what? I heard like the logic of those two. Sometimes I see this one, sometimes I see this one. כדברי רבי אליעזר וכדברי רבי יהושע. It says, I can solve your problems. I can solve your problems. שהמקדיש בפירוש. It says, you're discussing different situations over here. That's why you have an argument. It wasn't the same situation. It says, if the situation is that the guy says specifically, I want my money to go there, היינו שאמר, בהמתי ונכסי להקדש. When the guy says, my animals and my properties goes to the temple, then you say, כדברי רבי אליעזר. Because you know what is he saying? He's saying, I want my property to belong to the temple. In other words, you see that guy over there? God nominated it. He knows what he's doing with his money. In other words, I don't want it to go on the Mizbeach, my animals to go on the Mizbeach, if it's needed somewhere else. No, he knows. He's got enough animals for the Mizbeach. He needs the money. I want him to decide. I don't know what's going on over there. He knows what's going on over there. Therefore, I want him to decide. In other words, is that the mindset of the person when he's saying that? שהואיל ופירט בהמה, because since he specifically said, בהמתי ונכסי, he divided them. He divided them. ולא אמר, בהמתי למזבח ונכסי לבדק הבית. He didn't say, my behema has to go to the altar and my say. He gave everything to the gizbar. אנו אומרים שמן הסתם מתכוון להקדש שבהמה ונכסים שווים בו. It means that now we can deduce that this person wants to give everything to say, says, you know what to do with the money better, use it the best way that you know. היינו לבדק הבית, which means whichever things you decide, do with it. ויש מפרשים, and there are those who says, שהמקדיש בפירוש לבדק הבית, that somebody says, all this goes to the temple, כדברי רבי אליעזר, like the words of Rabbi Eliezer, והמקדיש סתם, and somebody who just says, היינו שאמר, כל נכסי להקדש, he just says, all my possession goes to the temple, then you say, כדברי רבי יהושע, like the words of Rabbi Yeshua, שהמקדיש סתם דעתו להקדיש כל דבר למה שהוא ראוי, because he didn't say specifically. In other words, if you want it to go to specific causes, you have to say. If you don't say it, it means you wanted the guy to decide. And then there's no argument. Everybody's talking the same. Yeah? וההלכה כרבי אליעזר. And the halacha is going to be like Rabbi Eliezer, הואיל ונראו דבריו לרבי עקיבא, because Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva thinks the same way against Rabbi Yehoshua, who thinks on his own.